This is just a game to you, isn't it? My daughter isn't just your little plaything. The tension in the room thickens. Everyone's eyes are on them. The cameras start snapping, and reporters rush over. Sophia's cheeks flush with shame. She looks up at Ethan, her heart pounding. Why did I agree to this? Ethan tries to step in, but the damage is already done. The whispers of the elite crowd begin, and Sophia feels the weight of her choice pressing down on her. We should have never come here. What would you do if you were caught between a deal with a billionaire and your own mother's health? This is just the beginning of Sophia's life-changing choice. Don't miss out on the twists ahead. Subscribe now and let us know where you're watching from. Comment below. What would you do if you were in her shoes? Sophia Matthews was standing at the center of the storm, her mother's voice ringing in her ears, cutting through the superficial smiles of the wealthy elite around them. Her mother's outburst echoed in the cavernous hall, bouncing off the marble floors and crystal chandeliers, shattering the illusion of perfection. For one painful moment, Sophia wished she could disappear. The murmurs from the crowd became a buzz in her ears, their whispers sharp like knives, piercing through her fragile confidence. Ethan Westbrook, the billionaire she barely knew, stood beside her, his icy blue eyes scanning the room. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in the tightness of his jaw, something that told her that this night, this moment, had gone far beyond the deal they had made. The night had started as a simple transaction. 3 minutes, a deal made in desperation, sealed with a kiss. She had told herself it was just business, nothing more, just a means to an end. But now, in the center of this public humiliation, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her decision crushing her chest. Ethan turned to her, his voice low, barely audible over the noise. Stay calm, Sophia. We'll figure this out. Don't let them see you crack. His words were meant to reassure her, but they only made her feel smaller. She wasn't the kind of woman who took charity. She had never relied on anyone but herself. And yet here she was, wrapped in the silk of a billionaire's world, a world where every mistake felt like it would cost her more than she could afford to lose. Her heart raced, her mind running in circles. The money was real, enough to save her mother's life, to give her a chance at survival. But the cost, the hidden price, was starting to feel unbearable. Ethan's touch lingered on her shoulder, a reminder of the deal they'd struck. His presence, once commanding and comforting, now felt like a weight she couldn't escape. As the reporters gathered around them, their cameras flashing like daggers, Sophia's mother approached, her voice still loud, cutting through the rising tension. You think she's going to forget? You think I'm going to forget? Sophia's mother was a proud woman, a woman who had fought tooth and nail for everything she had. She wasn't the type to beg, but here she was, humbling herself in front of strangers. And for what? For the price of a one-night arrangement? For the price of Sophia's dignity? The air in the room grew thick, stifling, and for the first time Sophia felt like she was suffocating. She had promised herself that she would never let anyone see her like this, weak, desperate, at the mercy of someone else's generosity. But she couldn't hide it anymore. Her mother's outburst had shattered her last barrier. The world was watching. And the worst part? She didn't know if it was too late to back out. Ethan took a step closer to her, his gaze flickering toward the exit, calculating. We need to go. Now. His voice was a command, but it did little to soothe her nerves. She was trapped, not just in the room, but in the web of choices she had tangled herself in. As they walked toward the door, the eyes of the room followed them. Sophia felt every single gaze on her back, the weight of judgment heavier than ever. She couldn't shake the feeling that this night had already changed her life, and not for the better. They reached the elevator, and as the doors closed behind them, Sophia leaned against the wall, breathing deeply, trying to regain some semblance of control. But the truth was, she was drowning in the consequences of her own decisions. She had taken a gamble, and now the house was collecting its debt. Ethan didn't say anything at first, his gaze fixed on the floor as the elevator descended. But finally, he spoke, his voice softer than it had been all night. I didn't expect it to play out like this, but we can handle it, together. Sophia stared at him, her thoughts a whirlwind. Could she really trust him? Had she made a deal with the devil just to save her mother? And as the elevator doors opened, leading them into the quiet, empty lobby. She realized something. The night had only just begun. But for Sophia Matthews, the real challenge was about to unfold. And it would change everything she thought she knew about herself, about Ethan, and about the price of survival. The city lights outside Ethan Westbrook's penthouse blurred into a kaleidoscope of neon, casting soft reflections on the polished floors. It was quiet now, far from the chaos of the gala. The kind of quiet that made her skin crawl, every thought magnified in the silence. Ethan had taken her back to his place, but it was clear they weren't just escaping the storm. They were stepping into a whole new kind of tension. Sophia stood by the window, her fingers lightly tracing the cool glass, her reflection staring back at her. She looked like someone else, someone she barely recognized. In the distance, the hum of the city was distant, like a faraway memory. Here, in this high-rise, everything was polished, too perfect. The kind of place where dreams were made or destroyed. Ethan didn't speak at first. He moved around the room, his actions deliberate, as if he were gathering his thoughts. He was tall, broad-shouldered, every inch the billionaire heir. But in this moment, he seemed different, more human, more vulnerable than she had seen him before. He wasn't the confident businessman who had hired her. He was a man caught between expectations and reality. Sophia's breath hitched when he turned toward her. His eyes locked on hers, those storm-colored eyes that had seemed so cold earlier, but now burned with an intensity she couldn't shake. She wanted to look away, to escape, but she was paralyzed. "You don't have to do this, you know." The words hung in the air between them, charged with something deeper, something unspoken. It was as if he were giving her an out, an option to walk away from the deal they had made. But she didn't know if it was out of kindness, or if it was his way of trying to distance himself from the mess she had brought with her. Either way, the offer felt hollow. Sophia swallowed hard. She had already agreed. She had already made her choice. But as he stepped closer, the air between them thickened with unspoken emotions. The warmth from his body seemed to draw her in, even though she knew she shouldn't. "I don't want to be here either." The confession slipped out before she could stop it, a wave of honesty that surprised her. She wasn't just here for the money, not really. The act, this thing between them, felt too personal, too intimate. She had hoped the night would be clean, transactional. But now, standing so close to him, she realized that nothing about this would be clean. Nothing about this would feel safe. For a moment, Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he reached for her gently, his touch warm against her skin, as his hand rested on her shoulder. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't commanding. It felt almost protective. "I'm not going to hurt you, Sophia." His words seemed to break the tension, but only for a moment. In the next breath, their lips met, slowly at first, like a delicate question. And then, with an intensity that took her by surprise, it deepened. The kiss was urgent, but not rushed. It was a blending of their fears, their regrets, their shared loneliness in this room that seemed both too small and too vast at once. Sophia had kissed men before, but this felt different. His hands were on her waist, guiding her closer to him, as if he, too, needed something to hold on to. She could taste the remnants of the champagne they'd shared earlier, the sharpness of the night still hanging in the air. But beneath it, she felt something darker, more complex. Desire? Guilt? Maybe both. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow. It was as if the entire world outside that penthouse no longer existed. Only the two of them remained, wrapped in the heat of a single decision, one she couldn't take back, no matter how much she wished she could. They broke apart, breathless. Sophia's heart was racing. Her body was alive with energy she didn't know what to do with. She wanted to speak, to ask him what this was, to understand what she was feeling. But the words stuck in her throat. Ethan, as if reading her mind, took a step back, his eyes still fixed on her. There was something in his gaze now, something softer, something more human. "This wasn't part of the plan, Sophia. But I'm not sorry." Her stomach twisted. She wasn't sure if it was the regret in his voice or the mix of emotions swirling inside her, but she didn't want to hear those words. She didn't want this to be some kind of mistake. But maybe it already was. She had come here with one purpose, one goal in mind, to save her mother. But now, with every passing second, she was losing sight of the woman she used to be, the one who didn't have to rely on anyone but herself. Sophia turned away from him, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of the night. She needed to think. She needed to breathe. But Ethan wasn't about to let her slip away so easily. He caught her wrist, gently but firmly, pulling her back toward him. She met his gaze, his storm-colored eyes filled with something that wasn't just physical attraction. It was a depth she hadn't expected. "Sophia, I don't know what this is, but I'm not letting you walk away. Not like this." Sophia felt a tug in her chest, a pull she couldn't ignore. He was offering her more than just money. He was offering something more dangerous, more real. But was she ready to take it? Was she ready to lose herself completely in this billionaire's world? As she stood there, caught between desire and guilt, she realized one thing. She was already in too deep. The deal they had made was only the beginning of a much larger, much more complicated journey. And no matter how much she wanted to walk away, she knew she wouldn't be able to. Not now. The morning after was always the hardest, but today, it felt like an impossible weight to bear. Sophia awoke in a bed that wasn't hers, surrounded by luxurious silks and satin, the faint smell of expensive cologne lingering in the air. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing, her heart a tangled mess of guilt, desire, and confusion. The night had been a blur, too fast, too intimate, too personal. What had started as a business arrangement had spiraled into something else, something she wasn't ready to confront. She had promised herself this wouldn't affect her. It was just a transaction, nothing more. But now, as she lay there in the silence of the penthouse, she felt the weight of her own betrayal. She closed her eyes, trying to push away the feelings of regret that threatened to consume her. The truth was, she didn't know how to deal with the emotions that had been unleashed. Ethan Westbrook, the billionaire who had once seemed like nothing more than a business deal, had become something more, someone she didn't know how to define. Sophia pulled herself out of bed and walked to the window. The city sprawled before her, a sea of skyscrapers and traffic below. It was beautiful, but it felt distant. A world she wasn't sure she belonged to. She wasn't the kind of woman who needed a man to survive. She had always prided herself on her independence, on the fact that she didn't rely on anyone. But this moment, this choice, had shattered that sense of control. Ethan had been there too. She could still hear his voice in her mind, his words from the night before. "I'm not letting you walk away. Not like this." There was something raw in his eyes when he'd said it, something that made her wonder if he too was feeling the pull of something deeper. But what was it? Guilt? Sympathy? Or maybe something more? She shook her head, pushing those thoughts away. He was a billionaire, and she was a maid. She wasn't going to get caught up in some fantasy. Sophia spent the next few hours wandering through the penthouse, trying to shake off the feeling that she was in someone else's life. She hadn't planned on staying long, and yet, there she was, pacing the sleek marble floors, feeling more out of place with each passing minute. It wasn't until she heard the soft chime of her phone that the reality of her situation came rushing back. The message was from her mother. It was short, just a simple text. But it carried the weight of everything Sophia had been trying to avoid. "How's the money? Is everything okay?" Sophia stood frozen, the phone trembling in her hand. Her mother had no idea what had really happened. She had no idea about the deal Sophia had struck, the price of that money. All she knew was that her daughter had saved her life. And for that, she was grateful. But Sophia wasn't so sure. Ethan had given her what she needed. Money, security for her mother's surgery. That was the deal. But the price was heavier than she had anticipated. She had sold a piece of herself, and she couldn't pretend it didn't hurt. Just as she was about to respond to her mother, she heard a knock on the door. It was soft but persistent, like someone who knew they couldn't be ignored. Sophia's heart skipped a beat as she made her way toward the door. She knew it was Ethan. Who else could it be? With a deep breath, she opened it. There he was, standing in the doorway, looking as calm and composed as ever. But something about his presence made her stomach tighten. The way he looked at her, like he was waiting for something, like he knew what she was going through, but wasn't sure how to fix it. "We need to talk." The words felt like an invitation to something dangerous. She wasn't sure if she was ready to have this conversation, but she knew it was inevitable. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Sophia turned away, trying to focus on something, anything, that could distract her from the weight of the moment. But Ethan wasn't about to let her hide. He moved closer, his gaze never leaving her. "I didn't expect it to end like this, Sophia. I didn't think I'd wake up this morning and feel—" He paused, looking for the right words, but they didn't come. "Look, I know this was supposed to be a simple arrangement, but now it's complicated, and I don't want to walk away from it. Not yet." His words hit her harder than she expected. She thought she had known exactly what she was getting into. She thought she could keep things simple, keep her emotions in check. But Ethan was making it difficult. He was making her care, and she didn't know if she was ready for that. Sophia turned to face him, her chest tightening as she met his gaze. She could feel the heat between them, the magnetic pull that seemed impossible to escape. She had never been this vulnerable, never been this raw. "Why didn't you just let me walk away, Ethan? Why did you have to come here and make this harder than it already is?" Ethan's expression softened, and for a moment, Sophia saw something in his eyes that made her wonder if he was feeling as lost as she was. He took a step closer, his voice low and sincere. "Because you're not the kind of woman who walks away, and neither am I." But Sophia wasn't sure if that was a promise or a trap. And in that moment, she realized one thing. No matter how hard she tried to keep control, her life had already changed. And the hardest part? She didn't know if she was ready to face what was coming next. The days that followed were nothing like the life Sophia had known. Ethan Westbrook's world had swallowed her whole. The lavish meals, the designer clothes, the sparkling penthouse. It all felt like a fantasy, something she didn't belong to, but now, she was immersed in it, and there was no way to turn back. Every time she tried to breathe, she was suffocated by the weight of what she had done, what she was still doing. Sophia had expected her life to return to normal once her mother's surgery was paid for, but instead, she found herself tangled in a web she couldn't untangle. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan's words. "You're not the kind of woman who walks away." And she hadn't. Not yet. It wasn't just the guilt that kept her here, though. It was something else, something deeper. Every time she looked into Ethan's eyes, there was an understanding between them. A connection she hadn't expected, didn't know she was capable of. He was a man who had everything, and she was just a maid from Brooklyn. Yet in his eyes, she saw something. Respect, maybe even affection. And it terrified her. That night, everything shifted again. Sophia was at the gallery event, one of Ethan's many social obligations. She hadn't expected to be invited. In fact, she hadn't even known he planned to bring her. But now, here she was, standing at the edge of the room, surrounded by art critics, wealthy collectors, and designers. Ethan had introduced her as his guest, his companion, and for the first time she felt the weight of the words. Companion. She was a far cry from what he was used to. Glamorous women with impeccable resumes and flawless reputations. But to her surprise, she didn't feel entirely out of place. Maybe it was the dress, the way it fit her body perfectly. Or maybe it was the fact that Ethan had made her feel important tonight, making her feel like she belonged here, even if just for this one evening. As she looked around the room, she saw Penelope Sinclair, the icy ex-fiancée, the woman Ethan had been with before, the one who still held power over his life, it seemed. Penelope's gaze flicked over to Sophia, a look of disdain flickering in her eyes before it was quickly masked by a practiced smile. Sophia felt her chest tighten. Not now, not here, she thought. But Penelope didn't need to say a word for Sophia to feel the pressure of her gaze. It was a silent challenge. "This is my world, and you don't belong here." Ethan had noticed Penelope's look as well. He was talking to an important collector, but his eyes kept flicking back to Sophia, as if he was trying to gauge her reaction. His protective instinct was clear. even from across the room. But Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that the situation had just escalated in a way she couldn't control. The evening was supposed to be about art, about culture, about building connections. But as the night wore on, it became clear that this was more about status, and Sophia was just a pawn in a much larger game. Just then, Ethan made his way over to her. His eyes were dark, his lips tight. He didn't speak, but his presence was enough to calm her nerves for a moment. "Ignore her." Sophia nodded, even though she wasn't sure she could. Penelope was watching them closely, and she could feel the storm brewing in the room. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating. Ethan had made it clear that he wanted Sophia by his side, but every time Penelope was near, it felt like the past was threatening to tear them apart. Before she could respond, Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen, his face darkening. "Excuse me." He stepped away, leaving Sophia alone in the midst of a crowd that seemed to be watching her, judging her. For the first time that night, she felt truly alone. Her thoughts spiraled, and she couldn't stop wondering. Was Ethan really different? Was she just another one of his distractions? Or was she someone he actually cared about? Sophia tried to shake off the feeling, but the doubt lingered, gnawing at her. It wasn't long before Ethan returned, his jaw clenched, his expression unreadable. He walked toward her, but the urgency in his steps didn't escape her notice. The look on his face told her everything she needed to know. "We need to leave. Now." Sophia followed him through the gallery, confusion flooding her mind. Was something wrong? What had happened? The tension in the air had shifted again, and it wasn't until they reached the parking garage that Ethan finally spoke. "I'm sorry. There's been a complication. My family. They know about you." Sophia froze, the words sinking in like a stone. His family? She had no idea what that meant for them, what it meant for her. She had never wanted to be a part of his family, never imagined being part of the world that came with him. But now, with his family's knowledge of her, everything felt more real and more dangerous. "What does that mean, Ethan? Are they going to stop us?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. He wasn't the type of man who was used to losing control, but tonight, he was unraveling. "They're going to try. They want me to end this. With you." The words hit her like a slap. End this? Was that all this had ever been to him? She felt the weight of his words, the sting of reality sinking in. But as Ethan looked at her, something changed in his eyes. There was no longer the cold detachment she had seen earlier. Now, there was something warmer, more genuine, but also more desperate. "I won't let them. But this, it's not just us anymore. We're tangled in a bigger game than either of us expected." Sophia could feel the gravity of the situation pressing down on her. She was in deeper than she had ever imagined. And as Ethan's words lingered in the air, one thing became clear. The stakes had just been raised. And the game? It had only just begun. The days that followed the gala were filled with a tense kind of silence that seemed to stretch endlessly. Sophia felt as though she were walking on eggshells, each step careful, calculated. Every time she saw Ethan, every word he spoke, she wondered if his family was looming behind him, waiting to pounce. What did they know? How much had they figured out? Ethan's reassurance, that he wouldn't let them break them apart, was hollow in her ears. Every time he looked at her, she saw the weight of his family's expectations in his eyes. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about the legacy he was bound to uphold, the world that had been handed to him, the rules that came with it. It was on the third day, when the silence between them became unbearable, that things changed. Sophia had just stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, when she heard a soft knock at the door. Without thinking, she opened it. Standing there was a woman she'd never seen before, blonde, tall, and impeccably dressed. The woman's icy blue eyes scanned Sophia up and down, her gaze lingering on the towel wrapped around her body. "I've been looking for you." Sophia froze, her breath catching in her throat. It was her. Penelope Sinclair, Ethan's ex-fiancée, the woman who had haunted every corner of his life. And here she was, standing in front of her, with no pretense of politeness or formality. "Don't worry, I won't take long. but I think we need to have a little chat about what you're doing with Ethan. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't want to engage with this woman. She didn't want to be part of whatever game she was playing. But Penelope's eyes were cold, calculating, and Sophia knew she wouldn't back down. Without giving Sophia a chance to respond, Penelope stepped inside, her heels clicking sharply on the floor as she walked past Sophia. There was no room for argument, no space for negotiation. She was already in control. I have to say, I never thought I'd see this. A maid, trying to climb into Ethan's world. It's cute, really. The words stung, but Sophia refused to let Penelope see the effect they had on her. She stood tall, her back straight, and met Penelope's gaze. You don't know anything about me. Penelope laughed, a sound that was as sharp as it was cruel. She stepped closer to Sophia, the space between them closing, the tension thickening with every passing second. Oh, I know more than you think. Ethan, he's always been drawn to people like you. People who need something. He fixes things. It's who he is. But here's the thing, sweetie. He doesn't need you. Not like you think. And once I remind him of that, you'll be nothing more than a distant memory. Sophia's stomach twisted, but she stood her ground. She couldn't let Penelope see how much her words had gotten under her skin. Ethan had always been clear with her. He didn't want to be with Penelope. But the way Penelope spoke, so sure of herself, made Sophia question if she had truly understood the depth of the world they were tangled in. Before she could respond, Penelope turned on her heel, heading for the door. Consider this a warning. Stay away from him, and we won't have a problem. But if you keep trying to play in his league, I'll make sure you're out before you even get started. The door slammed shut behind her, and Sophia stood frozen in place. She was shaken, but not defeated. She wouldn't let Penelope or anyone else tell her what she could or couldn't do. Not now. Not after everything she had sacrificed. That night, Ethan returned late. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. He had called her earlier, but she hadn't answered. She didn't know what to say, didn't know how to explain what had happened between her and Penelope. Ethan walked in, looking exhausted but still impeccably put together, as always. His eyes immediately found hers, and for a brief moment, he seemed to hesitate. You've met her, haven't you? Sophia felt her chest tighten. She didn't want to get into this with him, didn't want to drag him into the mess Penelope had created. But she couldn't lie. Not anymore. Yes, she came by today. She warned me to stay away from you. Ethan's face hardened, his jaw clenching as he ran a hand through his hair. He looked frustrated, conflicted. I don't want you getting involved in this. Penelope. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But his words felt empty. It wasn't just Penelope anymore. It was everything. His family, his world, all the forces that had shaped him. He could say all he wanted that he was different, but Sophia felt the truth sink into her chest like a weight. He wasn't entirely free from his past. He wasn't entirely free from them. But what if you can't protect me from them, Ethan? What if I'm just another distraction for you? Ethan moved toward her, his face softening. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, the distance between them growing. I'm not giving up on this, Sophia. Not on you. For a moment, his words filled her with warmth, a fleeting hope. But as she looked at him, something shifted inside her. She wasn't sure if it was fear or doubt, but she knew one thing. She was already in too deep, and no matter how much she tried to swim, she was sinking. The days blurred into one another, and the feeling of suffocation only grew stronger. Sophia couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her gut, the way her life seemed to be spiraling beyond her control. Ethan's words still lingered in her mind. I'm not giving up on this, Sophia. But she couldn't help but wonder if he really understood the cost of what he was asking of her. He had his wealth, his status, and his family. She had nothing but a promise, a fragile thread pulling her deeper into his world. Her mother was doing better, thankfully, but the relief of knowing she was out of danger only brought more questions to the surface. What had she really gained from all of this? Money? Yes. The promise of a better life? Maybe. But the price? It was heavier than anything she had imagined. That afternoon, a message from Lucas Larrabee pinged on her phone. She didn't recognize the name, but the subject line was clear. A new opportunity for you. The words alone made her heart race. Lucas was one of the wealthiest men in New York, an influential collector and businessman who was known for finding talent in unexpected places. She had heard of him before, but the idea that he was reaching out to her felt too surreal to believe. But it wasn't the message itself that caught her attention. It was the offer. He wanted to meet. Not just for an introduction, but to discuss a professional opportunity. Sophia's pulse quickened as she read the rest of the message. Lucas wasn't offering her a simple job. No, he wanted her as his personal assistant, to travel with him, to work on high-profile projects. And the salary? It was staggering. It would secure her future, her mother's future, for years to come. But there was a catch. Lucas made it clear that his offer came with certain expectations. Expectations that didn't exactly align with the life she had envisioned. There was an undercurrent of control in his words, an unspoken assumption that, in exchange for his help, she would owe him in ways that went far beyond the professional. Sophia stared at the phone, torn between the allure of a secure future and the gut feeling that something wasn't quite right. Could she really trust someone like Lucas? Was she willing to trade one form of control for another? The questions swirled in her mind, each one pulling her in different directions. And then, just as quickly, a familiar name flashed across her screen. Ethan. We need to talk. The timing of it all couldn't have been more coincidental. Or maybe it wasn't. Ethan knew about her financial struggles, he knew about the surgery, and he knew the weight of what she had done to save her mother. Had he seen the message from Lucas? Did he know what was at stake for her now? As she set the phone down, a feeling of dread crept over her. The conversation she had been avoiding for days was about to happen. She could feel it. The pull between two worlds, two futures. And it seemed like they were both pulling her in different directions, each one promising something she couldn't quite grasp. When Ethan arrived, there was no fanfare, no grand gestures. He was already inside before Sophia had a chance to open the door. His expression was tense, his eyes hard, but there was something softer underneath, something that made her wonder what he wasn't saying. I saw the other. Sophia froze, her blood running cold. The words echoed in her mind as she stared at him. He saw the message. How much did he know? How much had he been keeping track of? She swallowed, trying to steady her racing heart. Ethan, I don't know what you're talking about. Ethan didn't take the bait. He wasn't interested in denials. He stepped forward, his presence filling the room, his gaze never leaving hers. Don't play games with me, Sophia. I know about Lucas. I know what he's offering you. The room seemed to shrink, the air between them thick with unsaid things. Sophia wanted to deny it, to push it all away. But she couldn't. She couldn't lie to him, at least not about this. The temptation of what Lucas had promised was too great, but she couldn't let Ethan see how much it had shaken her. It's not what you think. Ethan stepped closer, his eyes searching her face as though looking for the truth in her expression. His hand reached out, brushing her cheek in a gesture so tender it made her heart ache. I don't want you to do this, Sophia. I can't keep watching you lose yourself for me. Her breath caught in her throat. She had always known there was something between them, something deeper than just the deal they had struck, but hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way she hadn't prepared for. I told you from the start that I'm not who you think I am, but you're not who you think you are either. You don't have to keep running from the life you deserve. You don't have to be anyone's pawn, especially not mine. His words hit her like a punch, and for the first time in days, Sophia felt a crack form in the wall she had built around herself. The truth, about him, about her, about everything, was slowly being revealed, piece by piece. She didn't know what to do with it. She didn't know how to handle it. What do you want from me, Ethan? You can't just expect me to walk away from this. From him, when he's giving me everything I need. Ethan's face twisted with frustration. But there was something else behind his eyes, a kind of raw honesty that she hadn't seen before. I want you to choose for yourself, Sophia. Not because of the money, not because of me. I want you to choose because you believe in it. I want you to have a choice, not be stuck in a game where you don't even know the rules. The words hit her harder than anything had before. She had thought she was making choices, that she had been in control. But now, in this moment, she realized just how much she had lost control of everything. Her future, her choices, and the very thing she had fought to preserve, her independence. She had wanted to save her mother. But at what cost? Sophia couldn't sleep that night. Ethan's words lingered in her mind, echoing through the silence of the penthouse. He wanted her to choose, on her own, without the influence of money or anyone else. But how could she choose when both paths seemed like traps? Lucas, with his promises of a secure future and the lifestyle she had never dreamed of, and Ethan, with his complex emotions and tangled family drama. Both offered her something she desperately needed, security, but neither offered the freedom she craved. The hours dragged on, and she finally rose from the bed, pacing the room. Her thoughts spun in circles. She was standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure of which way to jump. Could she walk away from Ethan, someone she had never expected to care about, just to protect herself from being pulled deeper into his world? Or would she risk everything for a chance at a different life, even if it meant losing the one connection that had made her feel alive in months? The next day, as she walked through the gallery, the weight of it all pressed down on her. She had agreed to meet Lucas. A part of her wanted to know what kind of life he could offer her, but another part of her feared what it might cost her. But before she could lose herself in the uncertainty, she saw her. Penelope Sinclair was standing in the center of the gallery, surrounded by collectors and high-profile art lovers. Her presence was like a beacon, drawing everyone's attention, commanding the room. Penelope's eyes locked on Sophia the moment she entered, and that familiar icy smile spread across her face. Sophia had always felt like an outsider in this world. But Penelope? She was born for it. Penelope knew the game, knew the rules, and she wasn't afraid to play dirty to win. "I see you're still around." Sophia froze in place, her body tensing as Penelope's words hit her like a slap. She had hoped to avoid the woman who had made her feel like she didn't belong, but now there was no escaping it. Penelope was a force, and in this world, Sophia was still just a shadow. "I didn't realize you had such an interest in me." Penelope's smile never wavered, but there was something cold in her eyes, something predatory. She stepped closer to Sophia, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor, each step a reminder of the power imbalance between them. "I don't have an interest in you, Sophia. I'm just curious about how long you'll keep pretending to be something you're not. Ethan is mine. He always has been. And you? You're just a distraction." The words hit harder than Sophia expected. She had never seen Penelope this close, never realized just how much authority the woman exuded. Penelope wasn't just trying to intimidate her. She was marking her territory, staking her claim on Ethan like an animal protecting its domain. Sophia's heart raced. Was this how it was going to be? Always second to Penelope's perfect, poised life? Was she really ready to throw everything away for Ethan? Or was she just another pawn in someone else's game? "Ethan doesn't belong to you." Penelope chuckled softly, shaking her head, as though Sophia had said something naive, something childish. "Oh, sweetie, that's where you're wrong. Ethan doesn't belong to anyone. But he's mine. He always comes back to me." The words rang in Sophia's ears, stinging with the sharp truth of them. She didn't want to believe it. She didn't want to admit that Penelope might be right, that maybe Ethan hadn't been hers to begin with. But deep down, she knew. She had seen the way he had looked at her when they first met, the way he had kissed her, like he needed her. But had he ever really chosen her? Or had she been another fleeting interest? Something to pass the time until Penelope was back in the picture? "You should walk away now before it gets messy. Trust me, I've seen this happen before. You think you're special, but you're not. You're just another pretty face in a world where pretty faces don't matter." Sophia felt a cold wave wash over her, but she refused to let it show. She wasn't going to let Penelope control her, wasn't going to let her make her feel small. Penelope could say whatever she wanted, but Sophia wasn't the same woman who had walked into this world with nothing. She had fought for what she had, and she would fight for what she wanted now. You don't get to decide that for me. Penelope's eyes flickered with something, maybe amusement, maybe something darker. She took a slow step back, appraising Sophia like a cat eyeing its prey before striking. You'll regret this, but take your time. Ethan always comes back to me. Always. With those final words, Penelope turned and walked away, leaving Sophia standing there, her heart pounding in her chest. The game had changed, and this time, Sophia wasn't sure if she was ready for the consequences. As Sophia stood alone in the gallery, the weight of the conversation, of everything that had happened, sank in. Was she really prepared to go up against Penelope? Against Ethan's family? Did she have what it took to fight for what she wanted? Or would she cave under the pressure of it all? Sophia didn't know. But she knew one thing for sure. The stakes were higher than ever before, and she had no choice but to keep playing. And just as she felt the need to catch her breath, her phone buzzed again. The name on the screen made her stomach drop. Ethan Westbrook. Whatever was coming next, it was going to change everything. The days after her encounter with Penelope felt like they passed in a haze, each moment blurring into the next. Sophia had tried to focus on what was at stake, her future, her mother's well-being, everything she had fought for. But the pressure was overwhelming. Penelope's words echoed in her mind, like a persistent drumbeat she couldn't ignore. Ethan always comes back to me. Was that true? Could Ethan really walk away from someone like Penelope? Or was Sophia simply a distraction, something to occupy his time until Penelope returned? The more she thought about it, the more confused she became. She had entered this world with no expectations, just a desperate need to save her mother. But now? Now she was tangled in a web of emotions, caught between the pull of two men. Ethan, the man who had given her everything but demanded nothing in return, and Lucas, the man who offered her security but carried a weight of expectation she wasn't sure she could bear. Sophia couldn't decide which was worse, the uncertainty of what Ethan wanted, or the cold certainty of what Lucas expected. The phone rang, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was Ethan. She stared at the screen, her heart skipping a beat as she debated whether or not to answer. He had called her several times since their last conversation, but each time, she had let it go to voicemail. She wasn't ready to face him. Not yet. But this time, something inside her snapped. She couldn't keep running from him. She couldn't keep pretending she had it all figured out. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that sent a shiver down her spine. We need to talk, face to face. Sophia's stomach churned. She had been avoiding him for days, hiding behind her own insecurities, but she couldn't run anymore. This was it, the moment where everything would come to a head. She didn't know what he wanted from her, but she was about to find out. Where? There was a brief pause before he responded. Meet me at the park. It's where we'll figure this out. Just, please come. The park. The place where it all started. Where their worlds had collided for the first time. Sophia wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad one, but she knew this was the conversation she had been avoiding for so long. And no matter how much she wanted to run, no matter how scared she was, she couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. The park was quiet when Sophia arrived, the faint sound of leaves rustling in the breeze the only noise breaking the stillness. The world outside this small green space seemed miles away. It felt like a different reality here, one where none of the complications of the past few days had touched her. She spotted Ethan sitting on one of the benches, his back straight, his posture tense. When he saw her, his expression softened, but only for a moment. He stood up quickly, as if the tension of the situation had caught up with him too. Sophia, I don't want this to be a game anymore. I don't want you to think I'm playing with you. I'm not. I never was. She couldn't breathe. His words were like a breath of fresh air, but the weight of them suffocated her at the same time. He was being so honest. Too honest, and that honesty cut deep. You don't get it, do you? You don't understand what this is doing to me. To us. I came into this with one thing in mind. Saving my mother. I didn't sign up for all of this. I know you didn't. I know. But you're in it now, Sophia. And I'm in it with you. This isn't just about you anymore. You can't pretend like it is. Ethan was closer now, his presence overwhelming in a way it hadn't been before. His hand brushed against hers, and it was as if every fiber of her being was aware of that simple touch. But this time, there was no hesitation, no walls between them. It was raw. It was real. I care about you, Sophia, more than I want to admit, more than I know how to handle. But I need to know something from you. I need to know if we, are real to you. Sophia stood there, unable to answer right away. What was she supposed to say? What did she even believe in anymore? She had tried so hard to keep her distance, to protect herself from getting hurt, but it felt impossible now. Ethan was breaking down every barrier she had put up, and all she had left was the raw truth. I don't know, Ethan. I don't know if I can do this. I'm so afraid of losing myself in this world. Ethan stepped closer, his hand brushing against her cheek. His touch was warm, comforting, but it only made her feel more vulnerable. He was offering her something she wasn't sure she could accept. Love, maybe, or something like it. But how could she believe in it? How could she trust him, trust them, when everything about their world was unstable? You don't have to lose yourself, Sophia. I won't let you. Not if I can help it. But even as he said those words, Sophia knew something he didn't. She was already losing herself. She was already tangled in the web of their lives, caught between choices she couldn't undo. And as Ethan leaned in to kiss her, she realized one thing. No matter how much she tried to keep control, the decision had already been made. She wasn't walking away from this, not anymore. The kiss was inevitable, and yet, it hit Sophia harder than she had anticipated. Ethan's lips were soft, but firm, as if he were trying to convey all the emotions he had been holding back in that one moment. His touch was gentle, tender even, and for a fleeting moment, Sophia felt like she was floating, as if nothing else mattered except the two of them. But the moment was fragile, fleeting, and it didn't last long. The intensity in the air made her pull away, breathless, her heart hammering in her chest. Ethan, I don't know if I can do this. The words slipped out before she could stop them. She had wanted to say something else, something reassuring, maybe even something hopeful. But the truth was, she wasn't sure she could handle it anymore. She had already sacrificed so much to be here, to play this dangerous game, but at what cost? Ethan's eyes softened, but there was an unmistakable tension in his jaw, a frustration that he didn't want to admit. You don't have to do this alone, Sophia. We're in this together, whether you like it or not. I won't let you walk away from this, not after everything we've shared. He was serious. She could see it in his eyes, feel it in the firmness of his grip. But the words didn't comfort her the way they should have. Instead, they only highlighted the contradictions that had been building inside her since they first met. Could she really trust him? Could she trust herself? She pulled back slightly, the space between them widening, the doubt creeping in like a shadow. What if you're not telling me everything? What if what we have, is just another distraction for you? Another moment in time that you can sweep away when it's no longer convenient? Ethan's expression faltered. There was something in his eyes now. Vulnerability. Maybe guilt. He didn't answer right away, and for a moment, Sophia wondered if he truly understood the weight of her words. I've never been good at opening up, Sophia. But that doesn't mean I don't want this. I want you. His words hung in the air between them, raw and unguarded, and for a brief second, Sophia could almost believe him. But the truth was, she had never been so unsure of herself. Every time she thought she understood Ethan, another layer of complexity unfolded before her. He wasn't just the rich billionaire who had saved her mother. He was someone else, someone broken, someone with a past he was still hiding from. I'm not sure what to believe anymore, Ethan. I've been fighting so hard to keep my life together, and now, it feels like everything is falling apart. Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentle, but firm with conviction. I'm not the one tearing your life apart, Sophia, but I'm not going to let you push me away either. You don't have to be alone in this anymore. Sophia wanted to believe him. She wanted to let herself lean into him, to trust him like she had never trusted anyone before. But there was something else inside her, the nagging feeling that all of this could unravel at any moment. And she wasn't sure she was ready to face that possibility. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the fragile silence. It was a message from Lucas Larrabee. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw the brief, straightforward message. "Meet me tomorrow. I have an offer you can't refuse." It was the same offer she had been avoiding, the same temptation that had been hanging over her like a cloud. Lucas's world was one of certainty. He wasn't complicated. He didn't play games. He offered her stability, security, a future where she didn't have to question everything she was doing. But could she trust him? Could she trust anyone? "I don't know what to do, Ethan. I've been offered a deal, a future, a safe one, and I'm tempted, but I don't know if it's the right choice." Ethan's eyes darkened as he processed her words. The tension in the air thickened as he stepped back, his face hardening into a mask of frustration. He wasn't angry at her, but he was angry at the situation. He was angry that she was still trying to make this decision on her own. "Sophia, this isn't about the money or the deal. This is about you, and what you want. If you think you'll find happiness with Lucas, then go. But if you're really considering this, then I don't know where we stand anymore." His words hit her like a punch. She wasn't ready for them, wasn't ready to hear the raw truth behind his feelings. She had always known that there were forces at play here, but she hadn't realized just how much Ethan was invested in her decision. For the first time, she saw it. The stakes were as high for him as they were for her, and the choice wasn't just hers to make. It never had been. The night stretched on, the quiet in the room almost unbearable. Sophia stood there, torn between two men, one who offered her security, the other who offered her something much riskier, but perhaps more real. She knew she had to choose. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if she could. What if I choose wrong? The answer was as elusive as the wind, slipping through her fingers no matter how hard she tried to grasp it. As she stood there, caught between two worlds, she realized one thing. No matter what she chose, the consequences would be irreversible. And the hardest part? She didn't know if she was ready for any of it. The next day, the air felt different. Everything felt like it was on the verge of breaking. Sophia's mind was a tangled mess of doubts, her heart torn between what she knew was right and what she desperately wanted. The meeting with Lucas loomed over her, a promise of stability in a world that had become too chaotic. Yet the thought of walking away from Ethan and everything they had built, however complicated it was, felt impossible. Sophia paced around her apartment, the phone in her hand feeling like a lifeline she couldn't hold on to. The message from Lucas still burned on the screen. "Meet me tomorrow. I have an offer you can't refuse." She had read it 100 times already, trying to figure out what it meant for her, what it meant for her future. But today she had to face Ethan. She couldn't keep avoiding him, couldn't keep pretending like this wasn't affecting her. She owed him the truth, even if it meant facing the uncomfortable reality of what she was about to decide. When she arrived at the park again, it felt like stepping into a different world. The air was still, heavy with the weight of unsaid words, but there was a sense of finality in the air too. Sophia found Ethan sitting on the same bench, his hands clasped in front of him, staring straight ahead as if waiting for something, or someone. He didn't look up when she approached, and for a moment, she hesitated, unsure of how to begin. But as she stood in front of him, his eyes met hers, and the look in his gaze made her breath catch. There was something raw, something vulnerable, that she hadn't seen in him before. It wasn't just the billionaire. It was the man, conflicted, uncertain, and open in a way he had never been. "I know what you're going to say, Sophia." The words hit her harder than she expected. He knew. She hadn't even spoken yet, but he knew. And for a moment, Sophia felt the weight of it all. The decisions, the betrayal, the sacrifices. It was like everything she had been avoiding was coming to a head. "Ethan, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm torn between two paths, and I can't make this choice. I don't even know what's right anymore." Ethan stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. There was something in the way he moved, determined, but with an underlying fear that seemed to mirror her own. I'm not asking you to choose me, Sophia. I'm asking you to choose yourself. The words stung. She had been so focused on the idea of losing him, of losing what they had, that she hadn't stopped to think about what she really wanted, what she needed. I don't know who I am anymore. Ethan's expression softened, and he stepped closer to her, his voice low, filled with a quiet sincerity that made her chest tighten. You're more than this, Sophia. More than the money, more than the world I can give you. You've always been strong, even when you didn't know it. But you can't keep running from what you really want. You can't keep pretending. His words hit her like a revelation, like something she had known all along but had been too afraid to admit. She wasn't just caught between two men. She was caught between the woman she had become and the one she had always wanted to be. I'm scared, Ethan. I'm scared of losing myself in all of this. Ethan reached for her hand, his touch warm and grounding. His eyes held a quiet understanding, a recognition of the fear she was battling, the fear of becoming someone she didn't want to be. You won't lose yourself, Sophia. Not if you trust yourself. For a moment, the world outside the park faded away. There was just Ethan, just her, the unspoken tension between them. And for the first time, Sophia allowed herself to feel the possibility of something else. Not a future based on deals, or money, or promises, but something real, something grounded in the person she was, not the person she thought she had to be. But just as she was about to speak, to tell him how much she had been holding back, the unmistakable sound of a car engine rumbled in the distance. She turned, instinctively, and saw the sleek black car pulling into the parking lot. It was Lucas. I have to go. The moment was fleeting. A breath, a heartbeat, and then it was gone. Ethan didn't stop her. He didn't ask her to stay. He just watched as she walked away, his gaze heavy with the weight of everything they had just shared. Sophia walked toward the car, the weight of her decision sinking deeper with every step. Lucas was waiting for her, but it wasn't just the deal anymore. It was more than that. This was her future. And as the car door closed behind her, she realized one undeniable truth. She wasn't running anymore. Not from herself, not from Ethan, not from anyone. But the question remained. Was she ready to face the consequences of the choice she was about to make? Sophia sat in the back seat of Lucas's sleek black car, the city lights blurring past as the car moved swiftly through the streets. Her thoughts were a jumbled mess. Each passing second pulling her further from the park, from Ethan, from the world she had just left behind. The weight of the decision she had made hit her in waves, a tide of uncertainty threatening to pull her under. Lucas, sitting in the front seat, glanced back at her with a small, satisfied smile on his face. He had been waiting for this moment, the moment she would come to him, the moment she would finally see that his offer was more than just money, more than just an opportunity. It was a lifeline. I'm glad you came, Sophia. I knew you'd make the right choice. His words felt like cold comfort to her. The car felt too small, too suffocating. She had made a choice, but it didn't feel like the freedom she had imagined. It felt like a trap, a different kind of cage, one she wasn't sure she was ready to step into. Lucas was everything Ethan wasn't, predictable, calculating, and secure. There was no mystery with him, no uncertainty. But was that what she wanted? Was she really ready to trade the unknown for the safety of what Lucas promised? Is this really the right choice? The car turned sharply, pulling her from her thoughts. The sense of finality began to settle in, a chill creeping through her. She had just stepped away from Ethan, the man who had given her more than just money, more than just security. He had given her trust, honesty, and the chance to be something more than she had ever imagined. As the car rolled up to the building where Lucas had planned their meeting, Sophia felt her heart race, the anxiety building in her chest. She had chosen this. She had chosen Lucas, and now there was no going back. She had made the decision for her future. Or had she? I don't know if I can do this, Before she could process the thought further, Lucas was already out of the car, his sharp suit blending with the sleek surroundings of the modern office building. He turned back, waiting for her to follow. She hesitated, her hand gripping the door handle as if it could keep her from making the next step. But she got out of the car anyway, her legs shaky as she walked toward him. Each step felt heavier than the last, her body moving on autopilot as her mind screamed for her to turn around, to run back to Ethan. But the choice had already been made, and there was no turning back now. Inside the building, the atmosphere was nothing like the chaotic warmth of Ethan's penthouse, nothing like the raw vulnerability they had shared. Lucas led her into a pristine conference room, the windows offering a sweeping view of the city below. He pulled out a chair for her, and she sat, her nerves buzzing in her stomach. The offer was on the table, literally. It was a folder filled with contracts, plans, and promises. Everything was laid out, as cold and calculated as the man who had made it. There was no room for doubt, no room for questioning. Everything was lined up. Everything was planned. This is everything you've ever wanted, Sophia. Financial security, influence, a chance to leave behind the life you've known. You'll be set for life. She looked down at the papers, the fine print too detailed to ignore, the stakes too high to dismiss. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, the path ahead clear, but shrouded in a fog she couldn't quite shake. This was everything she had dreamed of when she first made the deal for her mother's surgery. This was the way out. But was it the right way? I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can just leave everything behind. Lucas didn't hesitate. His gaze was firm, calculating, and he leaned in slightly, his voice dropping lower as he spoke. You're already in this world, Sophia. There's no going back now. The question is, what kind of future do you want? One where you get to decide what happens next, or one where you let people like Ethan dictate your choices? The words cut deep, sharper than she expected. Ethan had never once tried to control her. He had never asked for anything other than honesty, trust. But Lucas was right in one way. If she stayed with Ethan, her future would never be entirely her own. It would always be shaped by his family, his legacy. The thought made her stomach churn. Was that really what she wanted? Was she willing to sacrifice the raw connection she had with Ethan for the illusion of safety Lucas offered? The comfortable, predictable life? Or was there something more she could fight for? The door opened behind them, and Lucas glanced over his shoulder. His presence filled the room like a storm, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked onto Sophia. There was no anger, no frustration, just a look that told her everything. He had been tracking her. He had known she would come here, knew she would be pulled in by Lucas's promises. Sophia, don't do this. Sophia's heart skipped a beat, and her body tensed, caught between two worlds, two men, two futures. Lucas looked between them, his lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I think it's clear where her loyalty lies. Sophia stood frozen, her gaze shifting between them. Lucas's offer, Ethan's plea, the future she had imagined, secure, controlled, predictable, and the one she had fought to make, uncertain and full of risk. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what's right. The silence in the room was deafening, and for the first time Sophia realized that no matter what choice she made, there would be no going back. She was at the crossroads of her life, and the road ahead was tangled, uncertain, and full of consequences she wasn't prepared to face. But there was no turning back now. She had to choose. The tension in the room felt like a physical thing, pressing down on Sophia as she stood there, trapped between two worlds, two men, two futures. Ethan's gaze held hers, intense and raw, while Lucas watched with a calm, controlled expression. Both of them, in their own way, were offering her something, but it was never going to be easy. Nothing was ever simple when the stakes were this high. Sophia, I didn't come here to fight for you. I came here to remind you of what you already know. You don't have to choose this path. You don't have to give up what you are for me. His voice was steady, but there was an undeniable edge of pain in his eyes. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the power. It was about her. He had already given so much, his time, his trust, his heart. And now, here she was, on the verge of walking away from everything they had. Could he really blame her? Was he asking her to sacrifice too much? What Ethan is offering you is nothing but a trap. The past, the complications, the family. Everything is a game, Sophia. My world is clear. You can choose certainty. You can choose power. You can have everything you want. Sophia could feel her body tightening, the words from both men swirling around her like a storm. Certainty. Lucas had promised her that, and it was tempting. Power. The allure of a life of control and security. But what was it really worth? Was it worth the cost of everything that had made her feel alive? The connection with Ethan, the rawness of what they had shared, the trust that had slowly been built over time. Could she just walk away from that? Could she really give up everything for something that, in the end, might just feel empty? What if I choose wrong? What if I lose everything, no matter what I do? The question hung in the air, unanswered. She was caught between the fear of the unknown and the certainty of a path that, deep down, she wasn't sure was the right one for her. The world she was stepping into with Lucas felt comfortable, yes. But did she want to live a comfortable life? Or did she want to live a meaningful one? Was security worth losing herself for? You won't lose yourself with me, Sophia. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to give up everything for a future that feels like a lie. You don't need to change who you are to fit into my world. His words were soft, but they hit her harder than anything Lucas had said. He wasn't asking her to fit into his world. He was asking her to make a choice for herself, to fight for what she wanted without the burden of expectations from others. He was offering her a chance at something real. But was that enough? Could she trust that? Sophia's heart raced. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that the life she had imagined with Ethan was real, that it could be built on something deeper than the superficial world that surrounded them. But what was the price of that trust? What was the cost of choosing love over security? I'm so scared, Ethan. Scared of losing everything I've worked for. Scared of losing myself in the process. How do I know this is real? How do I know that we are enough? Ethan reached for her hand, his touch gentle but unwavering. He looked at her with such tenderness, as if he understood the weight of her fear, the weight of the world she had been carrying on her shoulders. She didn't have to do this alone. He wouldn't let her. You'll never lose yourself with me, Sophia. I'll fight for you, and I'll fight with you, every step of the way. But you have to decide if you're willing to take that chance. Sophia stood there, her heart pounding in her chest, the decision clear before her but impossibly hard to make. The future she had dreamed of, the future she had been running toward, was now in her hands. The truth was, she had always been afraid of losing control, of making the wrong choice. But here, in this moment, she realized something. She had to trust herself. She had to trust that no matter what happened, she could survive. She could fight for herself. And if she chose Ethan, if she chose love, it would be her choice, her path, not anyone else's. I'm ready. Sophia turned to Ethan, her heart heavy but filled with determination. The fear was still there, lurking in the back of her mind, but she had made her decision. She wasn't going to let ear define her. Not anymore. She reached out for his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch, the solid reassurance that she wasn't alone. And in that moment, she knew. She knew that no matter what happened next, she had chosen herself. She had chosen love. And that was enough. The road ahead wasn't clear. The future was still uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt like she had the power to shape it. She wasn't running anymore. She was standing tall, ready to face whatever came next, with Ethan by her side. And that was all she needed. Weeks passed, and the weight of the world that had once pressed down so heavily on Sophia's shoulders began to lift, piece by piece. The decision she had made, to stay, to choose love, to choose herself, wasn't easy. It was a choice that required patience, trust, and a willingness to face the uncertainty of the future. But as each day passed, The clarity of her decision grew stronger. Ethan had kept his promise. He didn't pressure her, didn't try to mold her into someone she wasn't. He gave her the space to figure out who she truly wanted to be. Together, they built something honest, something raw, a relationship not built on expectations or power, but on mutual respect and vulnerability. In the quiet moments, when she wasn't thinking about the past or the uncertainty of the future, Sophia found peace. Peace in her choices, peace in the love she had found, and in the life she was beginning to build. It wasn't a perfect life. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt, but for the first time, she felt like she was walking her own path, the path she had chosen. Sophia sat by the window in their apartment, watching the sunset over the city, the vibrant colors reflecting the change in her heart. The world outside was still as chaotic as ever, but here, in this moment, she felt grounded. Ethan joined her, sitting down beside her, his presence calming. "You know, when I first met you, I never imagined I'd be sitting here like this, with you." Sophia laughed quietly, the sound light and free. She had never been this open, this at peace with herself. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it was hers. "I never imagined it either, but I'm glad it turned out this way." As they sat together, the uncertainty that had once plagued her seemed distant. The future was still a mystery, still full of twists and turns. But for the first time, Sophia realized she wasn't afraid anymore. She had learned to trust herself, to trust Ethan, and to trust the path she was forging. There would be challenges ahead, there would be moments of doubt, but she was no longer afraid to face them. Sophia had learned that love, in its truest form, wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about knowing all the answers or having everything figured out. It was about choosing to fight for what mattered, choosing to trust in the people who mattered, and most importantly, choosing to trust herself. The future was hers to shape, and for the first time, Sophia was ready to take it on. No more running, no more hiding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Sophia knew one thing for certain. She had made the right choice. She had chosen love, yes. But more than that, she had chosen herself, and that was all she ever needed.